Fourth, the billionaire stood in silence at the edge of the overgrown driveway, the gravel crunching under his custom Italian shoes as if the earth itself resented his return. And for a brief moment, Adrian Vale, the man whose name sat atop skyscrapers, investment funds, and political donor lists, was no longer the untouchable titan of industry, but a boy again, barefoot, frightened, and hungry, staring at the same rotting house that now leaned forward like a tired old man waiting for judgment. Because this was the house he had abandoned 42 years ago, the house he had escaped from the night his mother died and his father vanished into drink and violence, the house he had sworn would never own space in his mind again. And yet here it was, summoned back into his life by a single line item on a redevelopment proposal that labeled the property as condemned, unoccupied. No historical value, words so clean and sterile they almost made him laugh, because if walls could bleed, this place would flood the ground red, and Adrian had come here today, not out of nostalgia, but efficiency, accompanied by lawyers earlier that morning who had left once paperwork was signed, bulldozers scheduled, and permits approved, leaving him alone with the ruin like an executioner granted privacy. And as he stepped closer, the air shifted, thick with mildew and something else, memory, regret, unfinished business. And when he pushed the door open, it screamed on rusted hinges loud enough to echo through his bones, revealing a living room frozen in time where wallpaper peeled like shedding skin and a broken clock still showed 2:17, the exact time his mother collapsed on the kitchen floor clutching her chest while his father slept drunk upstairs. A coincidence so precise, Adrian's breath caught as if the house itself had been waiting for him, and he moved through the room slowly now, not like a man inspecting property, but like a trespasser in his own past, fingers brushing walls where he once counted cracks to distract himself from shouting, stepping over floorboards he used to hide loose change under, and then he saw it, the locked door at the end of the hallway that had never been there before, not in his memory at least, its wood newer than the rest, its lock heavy and deliberate, and despite every rational instinct telling him to leave it alone, Adrian felt a pull so strong it bordered on fear. And when he forced it open, what he found inside unraveled the man he had spent a lifetime constructing, because the room was clean, impossibly so, with a narrow bed, shelves of books, a small desk, and most disturbingly recent signs of life, warm blankets, a half-empty cup of tea, shoes by the wall, and before he could process it, a voice spoke behind him, calm and steady, asking, "You finally came back." And Adrian turned to see an elderly woman standing in the doorway, her eyes sharp despite her age, her posture rigid with resolve. And when she said his name, his real name, not the one polished for boardrooms, he felt something crack open in his chest, because she was the woman who had saved him the night his mother died, the neighbor everyone said moved away, the woman he never got to thank. And she explained without anger that she never left, that she stayed when no one else did, that she bought the house quietly when it went into foreclosure, turned it into a shelter for children who had nowhere to go, children like he once was, children society forgot while men, like Adrian, learned to forget them too, and twist by twist the truth poured out, that his father hadn't vanished, but had been arrested for killing another man in a bar fight, that his mother's death wasn't sudden but the result of years of untreated illness because they couldn't afford care, that the scholarships Adrian credited to luck were arranged by this woman selling everything she owned to give him a way out. And as the walls closed in with revelations, Adrian realized the empire he built, on grit and self-made mythology, was rooted in sacrifice he never acknowledged. And then came the final blow. The woman revealed she was. Final blow. The woman revealed she was dying, that the house was meant to be passed on, that demolition would erase not just a building, but the last refuge for dozens of forgotten lives. And Adrian, who had fired thousands with a signature and bought silence with money, found himself unable to speak, because in that moment he understood the cruel symmetry of power, that the boy who once begged the world for mercy had become the man who unknowingly denied it. And as bulldozers waited outside and time ran thin, Adrian made a choice that stunned everyone, including himself, halting the demolition, converting the redevelopment project into a foundation, pouring billions, not into branding, but into housing, healthcare, and education. But the greatest twist came quietly, months later, when the woman passed away peacefully in the very room he had found, leaving behind a letter that said she never wanted credit, only closure. And as Adrian stood at her funeral, unnoticed among the crowd, he finally understood that wealth could build towers, but only responsibility could rebuild souls. And when he returned to the house one last time, now alive with laughter and light, he realized it had never been abandoned at all, only waiting for him to remember who he was before the world taught him to forget.